Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of the Securing Safety series. I'm Dan Murdoch, your humble host, and I could not be more privileged and honored to introduce our guest today, Jack Nix, Chief Operating Officer of Shelby Erectors. Jack, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me, though.
Of course. It's customary that we ask you to do a little bit of an introduction about Shelby Erectors and you. If you wouldn't mind doing that, we'll go from there.
Yeah, so my name's Jack Nix. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Shelby Erectors. I've been in the steel construction industry for 40 years now. I'm dating myself. I'm getting old. Yeah, so I went straight out of high school, went into the trades, became an iron worker, worked for my dad's company, tying rebar and doing structural steel and metal decking. Spent about 10 to 12 years in the field. Quickly became a foreman, through dedication and hard work and drive and wanting to go that route. Then moved myself into an office position or a supervisor's position. Started supervising crews and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, my dad and I switched places. I started taking on computer skills, learning job costing and estimating in the office, and he wanted to get out of the office. He hated that portion of the job, and so I gradually went in. He went out and wanted to run jobs, and that's what he does. Even today, he's out there still running jobs and erecting steel, structural steel and bridge work. Started my path in there, worked into that role, and then several years ago, my wife and I decided to start our own company where we could get into the business, and I would help her establish herself as a construction company. I have the construction knowledge, she has the business knowledge and education, and it's been a great team ever since.
That's incredible. And we were talking a little bit earlier about what kind of sustains that success. A lot of it is associated with hard work, determination, have a conviction in what you're building and what you're developing as an organization. I noticed on your website your commitment to innovation and your values. Could you tell us a little bit more about what those are and why that's been so critical to your success to date?
Yeah, so I mean, in the beginning, again, I'm an iron worker, so we went in there and we did things the way we've always done things. I don't necessarily buy into that, right? So I started thinking, there's got to be some better ways. There's a different way of doing things, and one of the first things we did not too long ago is we started identifying our core values. We already had these values, but we needed to identify them and put them on paper and really understand what they were. And by doing that, we realized that everything we do in the company or everything we want to accomplish needs to align with those core values. So that was a process that we did probably about 7 years ago now, and it's been very valuable. In that, it's allowed us to look at technology. What can we do? How can we do things different? So I don't subscribe to, because we've done it for 30 years or for 40 years, that's the best way of doing it. There's a lot of new tools and technologies out there today. So how do we bring those into our company? How do we improve ourselves? And as we talked about earlier, not for the sake of change or just taking on new innovations, but how do these changes and this technology align with our core values and make us a better company?
That's incredible. And safety is, of course, a pillar of that. Could you tell us a little bit more about your journey with safety, dating back to when you were first entering the trades, coming out of high school, to where it is today, and some of the things that inspired you to build such high standards for Shelby Erector?
Yeah. So that's an interesting journey, and I don't think it's much different for me than it is for a lot of people my age that were in construction. In the mid '80s, and prior to that, construction was pretty rough. I mean, it was there was a lot of abuses, alcohol, drugs, and stuff going on around the trades. Safety, there wasn't much of it. I mean, it was a pretty wild west. I can remember going to work in shorts, and we would get to the job. We'd take our shirts off because we wanted to have the best tan we could have. Hard hats got put down on the deck, and that's what we wore. We had work boots on. So that was basically the extent of our PPE. I also remember, as we got past that, okay, now they're requiring pants, and now, you got to wear a sleeve shirt. Okay. So that got a little bit better, and you have to keep your hard hat on your head. But, fall protection, let's talk about that. There was my first 7, 8 years in the industry, we didn't use fall protection. We walked the girders, and we didn't tie off. There was no, so, I mean, there was a thing, but it wasn't a thing that was enforced. I can remember working on a 30-story courthouse building in Miami, and we're about 15 floors off the ground building these walls, and we're working with leather work belts, and we're putting our wall hooks on these leather work belts and landing steel on those belts. Those are radius wall. And that's what we did. There was no other secondary tie off. And today people would be like, what the hell were you doing? What were you even thinking? But that's the way the industry was, right? Things have changed a lot for the better. And all these changes are definitely for the better. We're a much safer industry now. We don't tolerate drug and alcohol use on the jobs. Now we tie off 100%. Anything over 6 feet, we got to have fall protection. There's some real value in the way things change. I'm not saying, and all us older guys that go back, and we laugh at that because that's what we did, but we wouldn't want to go back there. That's not the way it should be. So it's an evolution. It's an evolution that needed to happen. And then today, so let me tell you why my commitment to safety had come along, and I felt like I was on it, right? Like we were pretty safe. I was like, hey, we got all these rules, we got all these regulations. We make sure the guys have the stuff that we do. We follow up. And then one of my friends that worked for me for 25 years died on one of our jobs. And we had an accident, and he got killed. And that flipped a switch in me that you can't flip back off. I made a commitment to my wife and my family that won't happen again, not if I have anything to say about it. And from there, we've just taken a much more stringent, no tolerance, kind of attitude, and our safety culture has changed. I would put our safety culture now against just about anybody's. We really believe in it. We explain why we do what we do. It's not just because I said so on a big stick. We really try to get people to buy in to what's happening out there, and we use technology to help us with that. I will talk more about some of the things that we've done that have really, really improved our safety culture, and I accredit some of the actions that we've taken using technology to why we are now. We have a 1.02 DART rating, which is incredible for our industry. We just surpassed this past year. We surpassed 500,000 man hours without a recordable injury. All right. We did have an injury since then, so we've reset the clock, but now we're at about 150,000 man hours. And these are goals that I never thought was attainable in ironwork, in rebar, reinforcing ironwork installation. I would, 10 years ago, I would have told you, it was just part of the job. People got hurt, and that's the way it was. But I think we've proven that's not the case. You can do it if you do it right.
That's incredible. You guys are clearly a sterling example in this. And Jack, I'd love for our audience sake for you to kind of unpack some of the specifics. We were discussing some of the ways you approach training that are different, the ways that you're using technology. I'd love to hear a little bit of, peel back the curtain a little bit if you can around the philosophies and the approach that you take to ensure such great safety standards.
So let's roll back a little bit. It starts with about 8 years ago, we decided to go paperless. And that was a decision that Jennifer and I made together. We wanted to get rid of the paper, and that meant throughout the entire company, from contracts to daily logs to toolbox talks to everything. We didn't want to collect any more paper. The problem with paper, and everybody knows, it gets eaten by the dog. You spill coffee on it, you got to collect it. So, over time, you used to hand in your timesheets and stuff by hand because we didn't have things. But then we had fax machines, so then you could get it in. But there's no fax machines on the job site. The guy can't have an instruct. Then we got phones with cameras where you start taking pictures of it and send it in that way, but it's blurry. You can't read it. It's not a good picture. And so, those were all steps forward, But now we have technologies where our daily logs are, and our timesheets, timekeeping is all digital. We have an app, you fill it out, hit send, boom, it's done. You don't have to think about it no more. Um, the old people in our company, or the older guys that resisted that in the beginning, will tell you 6 months later, a year later, one of the best things that ever happened. They don't have to worry about that anymore. They don't have to worry about how they're going to get that timesheet to the office, right? So, that's just one method that we do, but we went paperless. Okay. In doing that, then we found other products and other technologies that we could implement to help support that. Okay, we don't want to do paper. So what are we going to do? So Safety Plus Web has been huge for us because on the safety side, we deliver our toolbox talks digitally. Um, we do our safety audits digitally, and all of our safety training is tracked digitally. Our safety training is done digitally. So we really have embraced that. That's been a product that's really helped us along the way. Um, I'll talk to you a little bit. So our toolbox talks. I I always struggled with toolbox talks. You would send out, here's the topic, you send it out. The foreman's supposed to read it and go through it, have a meeting with his crew, okay, which would be 2, 3, 4 guys, depending, maybe up to 8 guys. And then they have to sign the sheet and they have to get it back in. Well, how do we know what message that foreman is going to deliver? Every foreman is going to do it differently, and not for nothing. I would say 50% of them would just hand the piece of paper around, everybody signed it, and hey, that was our toolbox talk, and let's go to work, right? And I think a lot of companies face that challenge. Now, bigger companies, they have these big mass meetings, and I've attended some of those, but how many people are paying attention? How many people really know what you're even talking about or even listening? For that matter, how are the Spanish guys getting the information, the ones that don't speak very good English, right? So through Safety Plus Web, what we're doing is we deliver all of our toolbox talk digitally, and it's a video recorded, and it's a message. The toolbox talk is done by our safety manager, and we have it translated in Spanish, so for the Spanish speaking guys. And so this way, everybody gets the same message. Every meeting is the same because it's a digital meeting that's delivered through the app on their phone. And then at the end for us, what we do to make sure everybody understands it is we ask 2 or 3 questions that they have to answer, and they have to get it right before it'll say they've done their toolbox talk. The questions are not hard, but it's, hey, what's the minimum fall distance, and so if they got to answer those, so then we have verification that they understood and comprehended the training that we're doing. That's been huge. Because now you really can't pencil whip that, right? You could pencil whip it other things, and it took us a while to get to that, but I really am very proud of doing that, and I think it's helped a lot.
It's a reflection of taking innovation and applying it within the proper context of the business to yield the correct results, which then reinforces your values. And you've found a way to kind of strike the balance between practicality and ensuring that there's no compromising on your values. Did it happen overnight? Was it an evolution? Like how many mistakes were made along the way?
So it's an evolution. I mean, all of this stuff is an evolution. It goes with a concept. Okay, let's do this. And so I'll give you an example in the toolbox talks. The first one was we would do the toolbox talks, the messages, but we really had no way. They would have to go through and say that they did it and they completed it. But then there was no way to see, did they really do it? So our first method of verifying that is, we'll change the password to get into Safety Plus, to log into the app, to be able, and we'll give the password at the end of the video. Well, after a little while, people started figuring that out. So then they start sharing the password, so they really don't have to watch the video or understand it. The questions really has been a game changer on that aspect. So that's one thing. The biggest thing that I think we've done is our safety audits. And again, we're using Safety Plus for that. So we have set up our safety audits, our site inspections, okay? And initially, it was our safety officers, okay? Then we started requiring our superintendents. Hey, superintendents, you have to do 1 a week, and it has to be on a different job every week. So they manage several jobs, okay? And That's a requirement. Well, that helped, but really what made the difference is now we require every foreman to do one safety audit every month. Now, that's not too much to ask, I don't think. But the idea behind that is you have to do the safety. For that 15 to 20 minutes, you have to look at the job through the eyes of a safety officer. Okay. Not through your production eyes, not through everything else. And you need to document it with pictures and photos and what's going on, the surroundings, and go through the whole thing. And I'll be honest with you, it's been since that change, that implementation, that we've really seen our drop in our incident rates. I mean, and that's the only thing I can correlate it to. It's not, listen, it's not luck. There's some luck in some of this stuff, but that's not luck. When you start really engaging, and to me, it's about safety culture, because now you've got your foreman whose primary responsibility is, in their minds, is production, but it's really safety first, okay, and then production. And you have them look at it through the eyes of the safety officer from that aspect. I think it makes a huge difference.
Couldn't agree more. And I think preparation and education is mitigation to a degree. And so the combination of those very important variables is what delivers the success. It's not luck, as you described. I'm curious also to learn a little bit more about sort of your evolution as a leader and getting visibility into safety. You were boots on the ground, had your fingertips on a lot of these things. As you had to start delegating, as you started to have individuals that you needed to entrust to carry these safety standards, how are you now getting visibility into those standards being met week in, week out? You mentioned receiving a report every Monday and having that visibility to give you a sense of things. Walk us through that.
Yeah. So, part of what we do also with using Safety Plus and what we're doing there is I get an analytics report, a safety analytics report every Monday. That's like gold to me. That's my checks and balances. I look at, I get my DART ratings, I get my, my incident ratings. I see what's going on. It reports on our mod, but that's that's just once a year. And then what's going on with our toolbox talks and how many things, so how many audits were done. So it's just a dashboard that really just gives me, at a glance, I can get these great metrics. I can make sure everything's going the way we want them to go, right? If I see something, I see a blip, then I get in touch with my safety manager, say, hey, what's this about? What is, and not for nothing, these technologies too, we can talk about this, help you with the compliance. All your OSHA reporting and everything is included in this. So now, your 300 logs and stuff like that are done for you, generated for you, as long as you're recording your incidents and what's happening. And that's where we record everything. And then we record our man hours. So that tracks all that. So that's part of the process. So I really like those analytics and being able to get that. It's on my, it's one of the, like I said, it starts off every Monday. I get that report probably mid-morning, and I make sure I look at it to see what's going on.
That's incredible. And you mentioned your safety manager, and I'm curious if you can unpack a little bit of your working relationship and what you find works. And sort of a follow-up question to that, there are operational realities, there are compliance and regulatory standards that you're trying to make sure that you're accounting for. How do you think about, first, your relationship with your safety manager and finding harmony and things that work with respect to that level of professional? Yeah. And then how do you ensure that in the joint venture between you and your safety manager, compliance and regulatory standards are being met above and beyond sort of the other things that we've mentioned that are really critical?
So we did things, so again, coming from my background, and I don't know, I'm not gonna say this is right or wrong. I don't hire safety professionals out of school. Jason, my safety manager, we trained him in-house. He came to work for us. He had a construction background. And actually I hired him originally to do some operations stuff to help me with operations, but that transitioned more into a safety role. And he trained over the years through us, and got his credentials as a safety, a certified safety officer, which is fantastic. I believe in that a little bit more, because I think safety managers or safety officers should have some boots on the ground experience. That's just my personal opinion, right? Because that's kind of the way I wrote up. And for me, to understand what you're asking these guys to do, you really have had to do it a little bit, to understand what's practical and what's not practical. I've met a lot of people that, they quote some stuff to you, but well, give me a solution. Don't tell me the problems. Let's come up with a solution. What's the solution? So there's some of that involved. Jason and I talk all the time. We're always on the same page. And again, he's bought into our core values and how we want to approach safety, how we want to have a hands-on approach, the training that we're going to do. I don't micromanage that, but by all means, we communicate with our supervisor team once a month, have a safety meeting where he goes through all the analytics. Like we're doing probably 100, somewhere around 100 to 115 safety audits every month. That's a lot for a company of our size. We got 100 employees, right? But that's a lot of safety. That's a lot of eyes looking at safety. So we communicate. We have this great tool called Beekeeper, which is like our company intranet. It's our communication. It's a version of something like Slack, but it's better if you ask me. And that's our communication tool. That's our internal communication tool company wide. And so we have a lot of communications on there. I'll give you an example. I saw a photo today that came in through one of the new technologies that we're using, and it looked like there was an alert for a fall protection issue. I'm emailing it to Jason, you need to get on this. And as I was coming to go to this, there was a ton of communication going on and what's going on, identifying whether the guy was tied off or not tied off. So, that's what we do. We want to make sure we're addressing things as soon as we can,
It's incredible. The communication is such an integral detail to making sure that all becomes a reality. I would love to pivot a little bit and ask you about your role as president of the Steel Erectors Association of America. Walk us through, if it wasn't impressive enough, you're the chief operating officer of a highly successful organization doing such inspirational things. Walk us through what inspired that and what are the things you guys are excited about for this year.
So, yeah, I'm the current president from Steel Erectors Association of America, SEA. That is a national trade organization for ironworkers, for steel erection, rebar erection, for installers, okay, of steel. Very proud to have been elected to that role. It's a 2-year post. This is my first year. We have our upcoming convention in Pittsburgh. So anybody that's listening, if this comes out in May, we're going to be in Pittsburgh. So come out. It's an excellent trade show. Safety Plus is going to be out there. So we're going to be representing to the different erectors out there. That's been that actually has helped me with my safety culture, because I've been surrounded. So in an organization like that, you surround yourself with people that are in your industry, and you're hearing what they're doing. We all have the same problems. We all face the same challenges, regardless of where you are. And in this organization, in particular, the sharing is incredible. We're talking about, and a lot of it is based on safety culture. So I have to say, a lot of my direction and things that I've done have come from being involved in the organization. I've been on the board since 2010, and sitting in those meetings quarterly and talking about things and finding out what other people are doing and how they're facing things, and grabbing ideas and going, oh, that's a good idea. How can we implement that? And so, yeah, it's really been powerful. It's really helped me make a lot of decisions that I've made, in going in that direction.
That's amazing. And that's part of our motivation creating this series. How can people learn from folks such as yourself to borrow an idea here and there, inspire a new way of thinking around safety? I'm curious if you were to share, a way to get started, right? Maybe for someone who is just open to the idea of innovating, where should they begin? Maybe some words of advice.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take that step, right? That first step, you got to decide, pick something that's not overwhelming, right? I'm going to give you an example. This kind of steps away from safety a little bit, but from the Steel Erector Association of America, we went and visited the offices of LPR. Okay, that's a huge steel erection, structural steel erection. They built the Marlin Stadium. They had this training program, that was, I couldn't even believe what they were doing. So they had this full-blown apprenticeship program. They're a non-union company. We're non-union. And so they were doing this full-blown apprenticeship program using NCCR curriculum. And they had all this, the way they tracked things, the way they did their wages and stuff like that. And I was blown away. because I had always in my mind said, we really need to develop training. I mean, that's where safety starts. It starts with the training, like, and getting people to understand. And I'm a second generation iron worker. My son's a third generation iron worker. I've watched, my dad knew more about the industry than I do. I know more than my son, and I'm watching every generation get watered down, right? So how do we fix that? So it's one thing to go out there and know how to do the job, but it's another thing to go out there and understand why you're doing the job. And that's where the training needs to go. We need to make sure that if we want the trades to continue and to evolve, we need to make sure people understand why they're doing it. And I think people that understand, it's my belief that people that understand the why will be better. And then they will be safer. They will understand the repercussions of their actions and taking that shortcut and not doing that. So anyway, LPR had this blown out system, and I decided, man, I want to do, but I'll never get to that level. So I just asked some silly questions, just like, how do you get started? And the first thing he said, don't look at what we're doing. Let's talk about what you can do. And that's how we got it. Now, I would put my system, my apprenticeship program up against theirs. I would say we are on that same path, but it took, I don't know, it took 5, 6, 7 years to develop, to get to where we are today. And we still have room for improvement. There's still things and innovations that we should be putting in place and getting our people motivated more to complete the apprenticeship program. So, so I'm excited for that.
Feels like the combination of an appetite for change combined with what's practical.
Yeah.
Right. Based on my organization, my needs and nuances, and my workforce.
Yeah.
Right. I think those are all really critical things.
And you have to understand how big you are. So, listen, and this is the one thing that the Steel Erectors Association is great for. The companies that have gotten larger, and I'm not saying I'm a large company, I'm a mid-sized company. We do over $10 million a year in revenue, right? Of labor revenue. The companies that are smaller, they don't have the same budgets. They can't afford a full-time safety manager, right? It took me a long time before that happened. So they're still, maybe they got 10 people or 12 people. Well, how do you can't do that, but you can have the values. Okay. Now, how do you afford that? I'm gonna tell you how. You join an organization such as SIA, and if it's not SIA, some trade organization that's doing what you do. And we have put together so much stuff for people in our organization, the smaller companies to grab onto, the little tidbit, the training without having to have the full-blown training person, right? So you can start training on this. You got videos and stuff that we provide to them. So this is where small companies need to really, and they probably are afraid or thinking these associations don't have much to offer them. But these organizations are made for small companies. If they take advantage of the opportunities that are there and being in the same room as people that have been where they are. We didn't start off big. We all started off with a couple of guys, and you go and you get your first job. You're probably still wearing your tools, and you're going out there trying to start a business up with your tools on. But that's where a lot of us started that way. And so these associations, if I had any advice for anybody that's in business and not sure where to go, join an organization that will help you, that does what you do or what you want to do. And there's people that are in that you want to be like, and get in there and get the information and get engaged. Because joining, this is the first thing I tell people that join SIA, you can join and we'll take your money. Okay, 100%. But the only way you're going to get value out of it is if you get engaged. You have to engage in order to get value out of that. So
you have to invest.
Yeah, no doubt. You have to invest.
Jack, this has been an incredible conversation. I can't begin to thank you for the time and for being a partner of Safety Plus. So there's so much to glean from what you've shared. If folks want to get in contact with you, is LinkedIn a good place to find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not the best on social media. I mean, I've taken the stance I need to try to get on there a couple of times a week. But yeah, if you message me, I'll definitely get back to you. I'll say something. But yeah, you can get to me on LinkedIn. There's one thing I wanted to mention, and we didn't really get on this. So one of the things I'm doing now that I'm super proud of is we're using AI technology with cameras for our safety monitoring. So I had a choice. I was thinking about hiring another safety officer. So when you start thinking about safety, and especially on a job site, as soon as safety guy shows up, everybody's hey, safety guys here, make sure you're on your P's and Q's. You got your eye protection on, you got your hard hats, whatever. Make sure he's here. Okay. Well, what happens when he leaves? Right. So we were thinking about hiring another safety officer, and instead we've taken that money, and now we have 3 cameras that we take and we put out on our job sites that have AI monitoring. And the picture that I told you about today, alert, guy's not wearing fall protection. And we're implementing that type of technology into our culture. And it's may sound a little bit like Big Brother, but at the end of the day, it's to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to. You can't hide from the camera. If you have bad habits, it's going to show up sooner or later when that camera's there. It's been crazy development. We've been a development partner with the company that's doing the AI for us right now, and it's evolved, and it's getting to the point where it's really good. It's really powerful. It's getting, and we're using inexpensive. You don't have to invest in these huge expensive cameras. So my first camera system was over $5,000, and probably by the time I got done, $10,000. That was something. Now we're using trail cameras, real link cameras that have solar power and they can communicate, and they're less than $500. And then we have the service that we're doing with them, and it's just what a difference maker. It's giving us, and it's been good for me because I'm actually pleasantly surprised that I don't get a lot of alerts. That you're looking at things, you're going, man, the guys are doing it the way that you expect to do it. But it's also given me the ability to focus on some details that we may have overlooked. We have meetings with this AI company it's Comp Science, every week or every other week now, and we're talking about what improvements can be made, what we're seeing, is the AI learning as we're making comments and stuff like that. And then they bring up stuff that I go, well, I didn't even think about that. Like, the crane's got the headache ball, it's dogged off, but the headache ball's over the crew. Well, how much harder would it have been for that operator to swing the crane away from where they're at? Now, chances of that headache ball dropping are probably 1 in a million, but it could. And so why not think about that? So then we relay that to our foreman and go, hey, this may sound like nitpicking, but when you're done using the crane, make sure he's not boomed over you guys. Okay. It could happen, you never know. So it's just made us that much better, so I'm really, really proud of what we're doing with that. That's that technology is coming, and there's a lot of different choices out there, but that technology is going to be a game changer in our industry.
Completely revolutionize it in the field. That's incredible. Well, I mean, there's so much to borrow from. Again, on the spectrum of the practical application, it was a journey to kind of get to that point. And I think the moral of the story is begin your journey, take that next step, think about how to join an association or to join a group and a community that looks and feels and experiences things just like you. Begin to invest and think about it on the continuum.
Yep.
And just reap the benefits of that across the entire boat of the business.
Yep.
So
I agree.
incredible. Well, Jack, thank you so much. And to those at home, thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about Safety Plus or Shelby Erectors, please feel free to visit us at safetyplus.io. Thanks.